So welcome to Reinventing Restaurants from the DC chapter of Les Dames d'Escoffier. Les Dames d'Escoffier is a professional and service organization for women in the culinary and hospitality industry. So we hope to have a robust discussion with our panelists, but we will also leave time for your questions. So please submit your questions using the Q&A feature on Zoom. Do you all see that? It's so unnerving to speak to such a quiet room. So before we begin, I want to acknowledge that this has been a very upsetting week in our city and our country. I also want to acknowledge that I'm having a slight panic attack, so I'll just keep talking through it. My heart goes out to all who are suffering and feeling the weight of injustice. I'm also sensitive to the pain of business owners, including some of our panelists and my employer, who had more setbacks this weekend with property damage and closures. It's a scary, sad time in our country, and we all need to embrace compassion and understanding and help each other through it. The last 2.5 months have been extremely challenging for many of us, but for the restaurant industry, it has been devastating, stressful, confusing, and unlike any challenge we have ever faced. Our panelists, who I will introduce shortly, are some of the most resilient and creative women I know, and it's been inspiring to see how they have remained nimble and adapted to serve us, even as they have tried hard to keep their customers and their staff safe and keep their businesses alive. Please know how hard this time has been for our cherished restaurants and people in the industry, and continue to support them in whatever way that you can. So first, let me introduce the panel. We have Ellen Kassoff, who's co-owner of Equinox Restaurant in Washington, DC, which is now celebrating its 21st anniversary. Ellen works side by side with her husband and co-owner, Chef Todd Gray, and is the driving force behind the restaurant's plant-based fine dining offerings, including Equinox's famous Sunday plant-based brunch. Ellen is the co-author of The New Jewish Table, and in 2017, she and Chef Gray opened 2 dining destinations at the Museum of the Bible. She is actively involved in the movement for environmental responsibility and hospitality, and is a passionate animal welfare advocate. After the shutdown, Equinox began offering brunch and dinner boxes known as Knox boxes. They continue to sell their brunches, including a 5-course tasting menu brunch for pickup. One thing that is unique about Equinox's approach to this crisis is that they did not use a third-party delivery app, and instead have used their employees to make deliveries in order to keep them working. Ellen has recently turned their patio into a beautifully socially distanced garden in preparation for reopening, which we thought was going to be happening this week, but now things are a bit more up in the air. Chef Juste Zidelyte is the executive chef and owner of Maple Avenue Restaurant in Vienna. She started living her American dream as an unpaid kitchen apprentice and worked her way to sous chef in 2 years and restaurant owner in 3. She has channeled the frugality and constraints of her formative years in post-Soviet Lithuania to fuel her creativity in the kitchen. Under her helm, Maple Avenue was celebrated as a top restaurant in 2018 by Northern Virginia Magazine. After the pandemic, Maple Avenue Restaurant switched exclusively to carry-out even before Virginia mandated dining room closures because they didn't want to risk exposing employees and customers to illness. Instead, they introduced online contactless pickup, sold gift cards, and changed their menu from upscale to casual. And they sold grocery staples and heat and serve meals. So another great example of adapting to crisis. Christianne Ricchi celebrates 31 years at the helm of the DC restaurant scene. Chris discovered authentic Italian food while studying art in Florence, where she met the Ricchi family, who owned a trattoria. She married Francesco Ricchi and learned the art of country rustic Italian cooking. The Ricchis brought Tuscan cuisine with them when they returned to the US and opened I Ricchi in DuPont Circle, setting off 3 decades of restaurant awards and recognition. Chris has been a director at the National Restaurant Association and has testified in front of Congress in support of the restaurant industry after 9/11. And my husband reminded me tonight that it's where almost 30 years ago, he first asked me to be his roommate.
Oh.
Isn't that nice? After the pandemic, he proposed roommatehood. After the pandemic, Chris and her team started Ricchi Food Club, a prepaid pickup food service Tuesdays through Saturdays, or is it through Sundays, Chris?
Through Tuesday through Saturday. Yeah.
Okay, that curates authentic Italian cuisine with preset four-course menus for up to 8. She has recently been transforming their beautiful patio for the new era, including increased outdoor dining. Nona Nielsen Parker has been in the food business her entire life, starting with bussing tables when she was 15. She started a catering business in the 80s and then opened up a very successful cafe in Baltimore, which she later sold. Nona works for Atwater as the production manager for their 5 locations in the Baltimore area. She has served on the board of directors of the American Institute of Wine and Food, of Les Dames d'Escoffier, and of the Restaurant Association of Maryland. Since the pandemic, all 5 Atwater's locations have remained open with shorter hours and curbside pickup. They started a pre-order online system, adding dinner to their offerings, did mail order and sales of pantry items, including all that flour and yeast that people have needed to bake at home, including my husband, once again, who's been making a lot of sourdough bread. With those creative changes, they were able to rehire 90% of their staff at the production facility. Jessica Botta works as the Director of Training and Culinary Development for Fabio Trabocchi Restaurants. Oh, I hope I got that right. Which include Fiola DC, Fiola Miami, Fiola Mare, 3 locations of Sfolina Pasta House, Del Mar, and Fiola Venezia in Venice, Italy. This is going to make me dream of going to Italy again someday. Her culinary career brought her into the kitchens of several James Beard and award-winning Italian chefs. Jessica was the chef coordinator of the School of Italian Studies at the International Culinary Center in New York in 2008 to 2012. And during that time, she competed in Iron Chef America and participated in the Sfolina d'Oro, a pasta making competition in Bologna, Italy. After the pandemic, Jessica and the team set up the Fabio Trabocchi Employees Disaster Relief Fund, which provides small grants of financial aid to assist employees and their families whose lives were adversely impacted by the outbreak. They have also built up a robust takeout operation, and they are preparing very carefully and thoughtfully for reopening this week. So we are now going to move on to our panel discussion. And don't forget, if you have questions, we welcome them. We will be addressing some of them later and just put them in the Q&A rather than the chat. So my first question is actually going to go to Chris. I want to talk about pandemic pivots. What worked and what didn't? And what has surprised you the most about operating during a shutdown?
Well, I'll stay on the positive because I think that's what we need to do today. I'll talk about what I learned and how I pivoted. My story actually begins about a week to 10 days before we were told to shut down. My daughter came to me and said, "Mom, you need to now," which has become the famous expression, "you need to pivot. Because if you don't, they're going to close you down and you're going to lose everything." So we sat down and we talked about what is it that we can do to ensure that people continue to have the Ricchi dining experience. And we came up with the idea of the Ricchi Food Club, where I curate 1 menu a week. It's a 4-course menu. It comes together with my travel notes or my musings on the menu. We introduce it together, or we give it together with a candle and encourage people to take the food out of the plastic, set the table, pour a glass of wine, light the candle, and enjoy your dining experience at home. We were hoping that it would be successful. We have been amazed at the response. Something unique about this food club is people can sign up for 4 weeks at a time. So people are signing up and purchasing 4 weeks of menus without even knowing what the menu is. It's encouraging to see that approximately almost 80% of the people that participate in our food club have opted for the King's Table, whereas they purchase 4 meals at a time. So for those of you on the panel who are in the restaurant business can understand it does several things. Number one, I know exactly how many meals I have to produce every week, so I know how to order. I know how to staff the kitchen, and it's cut down dramatically on my costs. What it has also done, it has created this excitement about what are we doing this week and what are you going to be giving us next week? So people are always looking forward to the next week. We find again that about 80% of the people that are in the club join for more than 1 week, and almost everyone at the end of their 4 weeks signs up for another 4 weeks.
That's what we call an excellent retention rate in the business.
And this was something my daughter, she said to me the other day, can you imagine if every Monday you started out trying to figure out how many people you were going to have to serve that week? Now we know, of course, we know a minimum of how many people will be joining us for that week. I would say one of the unexpected things that we learned, I'm a hands-on owner. I'm in the kitchen, I'm in the dining room, I know my customers. But one of the things that has really surprised me is how the connection that has been developed between myself and the members of the food club. These people come now every week. I know their cars. I know who they are. I know their dogs. I know the names of their children. It's really developed a very, very strong bond between myself and the customers, which was really an added surprise for us.
I love that. And this is some of us are, I'm sure, going to be emulating this model. You've created something new in the restaurant industry. And Ellen, I'm going to turn to you with the same question. Do you want me to repeat the question?
Sure.
So the question is, what worked and what didn't for your pandemic pivot? And what has surprised you the most about operating during a shutdown?
I have to 100% agree with Chris in that it's given us an opportunity to get to know customers, previous customers and current customers and customers we've never had before in such a different way. Like she said, I've driven up to many driveways and met kids and dogs and had conversations on a much more personal level than I've ever had. So we've made some great new friends, solidified amazing relationships. So that works. The customer service end was a pivot in that all the calls that were coming into a restaurant, we transferred to my cell phone. That was interesting. I got a little help on that later on, but I haven't stayed and answered the phones in the restaurant, for 8 full hours, probably in, 15 years, because we always have a hostess, and it's interesting answering your phones again. So customer service worked out well. The other thing was so many people were happy that they called us and they got a human being on the phone that works for the restaurant, rather than if you try to order something through an app, who do you really call? They kind of shield you from the restaurant. We really didn't want to have anybody in between us and our customers at this time, because our customers are very personal to us, and we want to safeguard their experience, whether it's calling us on the phone or ordering online. We had to pivot, our POS system, and since we didn't use a third-party app, whereas some of them set up a computer for you and the orders come rolling in, we had to convert our catering software actually very quickly to make it so that people could do contactless payment through, our catering system. So that was interesting. So that, our drivers who are our busboys and our servers didn't have to deal with money. And we left a nice line for gratuity too, of course, which was astounding and surprising and heartwarming how much people were giving to our staff in the way of gratuities when they dropped it off. As far as not working, I don't think, I guess when you say not working, I don't know, maybe does that mean revenue or does that mean a menu that didn't work? I don't know that anything didn't work.
It's just all learning.
We try everything. We were kind of fearless in that sense that we would just throw it out there, and it's a whole new culinary path, and also figuring out what travels well.
Oh, yes.
And what reheats well, and what fish or whatever people are eating would dry out in the oven. So I had so many long conversations with people on the phone about how to reheat things.
Oh.
It's so cute. Some of them were just like, okay, I've really got to go now. Everybody's calling on my phone, but it was nice. I mean, you're talking people through how to prepare their dinners. Once they, got them home, obviously everything was cooked, but they wanted to reheat things properly. And it was amazing the care that people were taking in reheating their food. So that was really cool. But I don't know that anything didn't work. I
guess it's all learning.
Yeah, it was.
You're an entrepreneur, right? It's just a matter of
different,
right.
And adapting to change quickly is what makes this. We view it as a success.
Yeah.
So I just.
And I'm sure that everybody here is probably glossing over a little bit some of the challenges, and we will get to that too. But Juste, I wanted to ask you, tell us what your day is like now and how it differs from the pre-COVID days that you would have at the restaurant.
Well, I'm enjoying it, and it's horrifying at the same time. I'm really enjoying the fact that I actually work less. I'm a hands-on owner. I'm a chef. I'm a cook. We do everything. Me and Ricardo, my partner. So the amount of hours actually that I'm at the restaurant physically and cooking is way less, because naturally our hours are reduced right now. We completely eliminated lunch. We have just one day, Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday. We used to be open all day, every day. So for me, that's a big relief. I mean, now I have time to organize my closets. But I need to report that time issue wasn't the issue before. It's still not organized. But anyway, I'm enjoying that. The personal life definitely improved. That's the biggest change. Of course, my day in general changed in the sense you do other things now. Now I'm sitting on my computer looking for financing, let's say, or reading about the latest news, what the laws are going to be, what the regulations are going to be. There's way more screen time right now, but I can do that at home. That's the good part.
I don't know how many people would say that their social lives have improved during the last couple of months. That's a big, change.
I know. Well, I'm also an introvert, so I don't feel it as much. But of course, it's very different.
That's great to know. And Jessica, I wanted to ask you actually to answer that last question, or if you prefer the previous question, which is how your daily life has changed in your role since before and after COVID.
Yeah, for me, well, everything about life has changed for me. I think for us, really, like some of the other panelists have said, really trying to understand how we can best adapt the dining or the experience of our restaurants for the guests. Once we shut down the restaurants, we spent a couple of days, obviously, we weren't sure what was going to happen. So inventorying, cleaning, packing everything away, unfortunately furloughing a lot of our employees, most of them, 95%. And so then having to start again and identifying what it is that we can offer to the public. What does it mean to be a guest at our restaurants in this time? And trying to identify the value proposition that we could provide in the moment, and how we could best serve our guests and give them something that was of value to them. And, I think we made some mistakes and we made some really good decisions. Some things that we thought may have worked better didn't. I mean, we were able to turn around and get most of our spirits and wine inventory online in the early part of the shutdown, and begin doing a delivery and pickup business for exclusively alcohol and wine with food, some small food items. That was our first sort of pivot. And then once that was really taking off, it enabled us to bring back more staff and to also do the deliveries and help us fulfill the orders. And that also sort of set the stage for expanding the offerings. So we began to offer more and more food, full meals. We expanded our offerings to include also grocery items, cleaning items, things that we were hearing from our guests that there was hesitation to go to the grocery store, and they were ordering from us delivery anyway. Okay, you can get your toilet paper, you can get your, butter, you can get your flour, you can get your yeast also. And so that was one area that expanded. I think right now we're starting to see a decline in that demand, because as the city is opening up, people are starting to feel more comfortable going out again. Now, obviously people are dining outdoors in some locations. And so we'll be altering that and adjusting and adapting that again. So it's been an ongoing learning process. I mean, physically, the day-to-day has been, it's a lot about, because we're not serving guests in the dining room, it's everything behind the scenes. So it was really setting up the physical aspect of the restaurant to be able to fulfill all the orders, reconfiguring how the walk-ins were organized, reconfiguring what did we do with all these takeout containers? What did we do with all the boxes? Creating all the reheating instructions, which is, I agree with Ellen. It was a big deal for people to get their food and want to be able to, I think, prepare it as they would experience it in the restaurant. So there was a lot of some anxiety about that and the guests, and we wanted to give them the best information. So recipe testing. And then also just working with purveyors and also looking at every aspect of the safety and health and well-being of the employees. In terms of the entire operation. And even when we were shut down, I mean, the idea from the beginning was, let's start to figure out what is life going to be like when we are finally able to have some kind of reopening, which we're in now, and starting to think about the implications on all the aspects of service, even while we're going to get to that
soon. That's in our next topic. But Nona, I wanted to ask you what you have experienced sort of from the employee end. I know there's been a period of a lot of layoffs and rehiring, and what are you hearing from your employees, or how did it change your interactions with them?
Well, we have two different aspects. We have 5 locations, and there's those employees. So it's the kitchen staff and the managers and the wait staff, and then the production facility where I am, where we have the dishwashers and the day-to-day people that are making the food, and the warehouse people and the front office people and the HR people. And, when all was going down, we weren't sure what was happening. And then all of a sudden we just had to lay off, everybody. It was just like, we start with the hourly people, we started with dishwashers, and we're not going to lay off the salary people, but then it had to be which salary people we're going to lay off. We just had to really go down the list and go down to bare bones. And then as, we had to go into crisis mode. And then as, Ned walked in one day and said, let's start dinner. And we're a breakfast and lunch place. We don't do dinner. So let's have dinner to go boxes.
And is that because more people want dinner than they want breakfast and lunch right now?
Yeah, he just
said restaurant
that people are making, doing dinner bags, and that's what's selling. So that's what we're going to do. So we had to turn around, get people in there that could, pull this off, call people back. And one of my surprising things though with the staff was not everybody wanted to come back. I thought everybody would be waiting on the edge of their seat for the phone call.
Panelists, nod or shake your heads if that's been your experience.
I thought everybody's going to run back. They can't wait for the phone call. Well, that was not true.
It can be scary for some of them, a lot of them,
yeah.
and hard to get to work.
It was, people that did public transportation didn't want to ride buses. Some people were scared to come to work. We can address some people that, make more money on unemployment. There was a lot of different issues. Catering, zero. Some people didn't want to come back.
Somebody just pointed out in the chat, which I'm not supposed to be monitoring, not to mention sometimes they don't have childcare.
But some people didn't want to come back and do a different job.
Yeah.
So there was that, but then there was all the people that rose above everything and were willing to do anything. I mean, somebody in the front office did the deliveries one day. I did the deliveries. I learned to drive. I drove a truck one day. I mean, we all, all those people that just jumped in and said, "What can I do?" That was really great. And that's the stuff you remember when people start coming back, who jumped in, who did what, who was willing to work a market, who was willing to fold boxes, because all of a sudden everything has to be wrapped individually and put in boxes, and we're folding boxes. So who's willing to, no matter who you are, what your pay rate is, to sit there and fold boxes.
Yes, good point. It can be a defining moment for a lot of us in our relationships with our coworkers and employees, for sure.
Boxes.
So I want to get to a little bit about the reopening. And I want to, of course, acknowledge that this was supposed to be a big week for reopening in DC, and there's been some setbacks. The world has been topsy-turvy. There's been some protests and even some damage to some of the restaurateurs on the panel, not to them, but to their restaurants. But I'm going to almost pretend that things are normal, because things will get normal-ish again, we hope. So Ellen, I wanted to ask you if you can walk us through the economics of reopening a restaurant, potentially with new staff, new food, new menu, new patio in your case, new serving and hygiene requirements. Tell us a little bit about what that's like.
You think I set a budget for it, right? One day,
because we know that everybody's so flush with cash right now anyways.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's no, normally when you retrofit or change or anything, you try to come up with some semblance of a budget if you're going to even buy new chairs or paint something. So, but we knew, look, we're an older facility, and we felt like it had to be changed in order for, my biggest thing was to make people feel safe coming back. And we, as we went through the days leading up to opening and paying attention to what's going on around us, and listening and reading through the mountains and mountains of different directions we've been getting all over the place, from CDC, RAMW, NRA, the government, like it's crazy. We started to...
And NRA is National Restaurant Association, and RAMW is Restaurant Association of Metropolitan Washington, for those that thought she might be getting Second Amendment advice.
No, I'm not going there. So we sort of came up with a plan and did things day by day, and operating cash, because we were operating, was siphoned off a little at a time, and I was furiously looking for, we wanted to change the carpet because, just wanted to make some of the fresh changes to make people feel safe. We just want to make people feel comfortable, safe, and distanced. So the plan was not like a master plan. It evolved every day, but I scoured, for a carpet person who has extra carpet left in the warehouse from a job in the PCW. I call it the PCW, pre-COVID world and post-COVID world. In the PCW, because I'm so sick of that word. And I did, I found somebody with, a leftover carpet from another job, just things like that. I am, thankfully, one of our fabulous servers, his brother is an amazing carpenter. So I looked around the internet and found plans for the planters on this whole house. And we just constructed it as we went. And I thought that, being a lover of green space, that plants and planters, and I think everybody's become a junior gardener through this whole thing too, which I've always loved gardening and plants, but whatever. So we constructed these large planters on casters that could be moved, and make the space different all the time, but everybody basically, well, the few tables we have like a little dining pod, surrounded by plants, which to me serenity in the city kind of moment, you know, green, plants, oxygen, and your neighbors are 6 feet away. So we made it up as we went and just kind of went with our gut. There was no master plan. There was no budget set aside. And if I added up all my receipts, you know, we probably spent 15, 20,000. We used some of our own money. We used some credit cards. When we did get the PPP loan, that gave us a big break in the payroll that we did have, because then we could start to use that, although we are very scared to use a lot of it right now. So we've really been trying to, you know, farm that out carefully, because we don't know how long everything is going to go on for. So we've done everything from put Home Depot runs on our credit card to finding stuff and on Craigslist and repainting it or having it built in the restaurant. So you just keep going with it, and we get a new payment. I mean, I just dropped my son off at University of West Virginia, and I was furiously looking for cool nurseries up there, which I found one to bring more. So you just keep growing on your projects. You know, I have projects. So you just keep building on a little foundation that you find yourself setting up what's right for your restaurant. My restaurant, what we did might not apply anywhere else. Right.
And there's a lot of creativity in this crisis, unfortunately, by necessity.
Yeah.
Jessica, speaking of creativity, I noticed that you all are doing some really innovative things, or at least as far as I've seen, on how you're getting diners to feel safe when they come back to your restaurant. So I wondered if you could talk about a couple of those steps that you'll be taking, even the ones that customers won't necessarily see. Oh, Jessica, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I was just trying to unmute myself. Well, you know, we walked through our steps of service. We looked at the guidance from the CDC and from DC Health. And, you know, I think our biggest consideration is obviously the safety and well-being. So we're doing everything that is suggested or recommended by CDC and by DC Health. But I think, you know, we also have a desire to not make the dining experience feel like people are, you know, they're in a hospital. You know, people will want to come to restaurants for incredible hospitality and service. And even we want them to still be able to feel that, to not feel like they're sort of in a hospital ward. And so where we could allow them to do that would, you know, despite the fact that everyone's wearing masks, yes, we have hand sanitizer on the stations and available to guests all the time. We do require guests to wear masks when they're in the restaurant or in the dining area if they're not seated at their table eating. But, you know, we wanted to provide them with the opportunity to take their masks off. We're giving them a bag in which they can put the mask and store it in a safe and sanitary place while they're dining off the table, so they don't have to wear it on their face or stick it in their pocket or set it on the table. We're looking at, you know, aspects of the dining experience that are interactive that can still be done at a safe distance, right? You know, we have to still open wine. So how do we open wine, for instance? You know, we can are we opening bottles of wine at the wine station? Are we opening it at the table? Some of these steps of service we've had to modify for everyone's safety, but we're trying to retain as much as possible, you know, the personality, the intimacy, the sincere hospitality of the experience. The delight in dining out.
And that's my next question was actually to Chris, and you talked a little bit about some of this already. How do you hope to bring back the experience of dining out given the restrictions and limitations, or what will diners need to understand about their new restaurant going experience?
You know, I think people react to, certainly they react to the owner's attention. Everybody knows what's going on. Everybody, at least the people that I've been working with, the customers that we've had with our food club and in our very short-lived outdoor seating experience, people understand. And they want to be helpful. They want to be supportive. I've noticed even with the food club, the amount of tipping, and I think maybe Ellen mentioned that, the amount of tipping that goes on, I'm amazed. I'm amazed at how much people are tipping as a sign of support. You know, give this to your guys. We want to make sure that when this is all over, you're still here. There's this willingness to help. I think about, in reference to your earlier question about things that we're having to do with regards to customer safety. I'm confident that what we're doing will keep our customers safe, even from things like slicing the bread and putting them in little bags. And when we bring the bread to the table, so that it's not in a community bread basket. But my concern is for my staff. When you think about how many people that they're going to be potentially we're hoping how many people they're going to be potentially interacting with, I want to make sure that my staff is safe. Certainly not only for their welfare, but also for the business's welfare. I mean, my heart goes out when I've read about my colleagues having to close for 2 weeks because someone on the staff has become ill. That really scares me because as you and I, Aviva, spoke about earlier, there's so many things that are out of our control. As much as we try, we don't know what's going to happen. And I can relate even to, I can relate to Ellen. I met with a carpet guy today. But to tell you the truth, I've been putting it off because I wasn't sure when and if we could reopen. So I think it's even a leap of faith for those of us who are still investing in our restaurants, certainly.
It is, and that's part of what makes you all so courageous and resilient and so inspiring, because this is a really, really scary time and you have to take a lot of risks, and that's not for everybody. So let's see, Nona, I wanted to ask you, and actually this is a question that I'm most likely going to direct to all of you, but what are some of the lasting changes that could emerge from this painful period that will help you serve your customers and the community better, or be something innovative that you might continue to do that you might not otherwise have done? So this is sort of the silver lining question.
Well, for us, I mean, one silver lining is, of course, that we've been open the whole entire time, all 5 locations. So that's pretty incredible. The other thing is, since that day that Ned walked in and said, let's do dinner, maybe we'll still continue some of that stuff. It's given a lot of people in our kitchen some creativity, some things that we don't do every day. So, you know, maybe we'll keep some of that going. We've been able to refurbish a lot of things. We reduced our footprint at one of our locations at Belvedere Square, which was needed to happen, but we didn't want to upset the community that comes in there. So this was like the perfect break to do that.
Some of us are cleaning our closets. Others of us are cleaning and cutting our restaurants.
Right. You know, we reduced the footprint by half in the market. You know, I think that we talk about this at work all the time, that we all say, look how fast we turned on a dime. Look at what we did in a short amount of time. You know, let's be proud of ourselves. And I think it's important to have gratitude and realize what a good job we did, and to know that we can do it. I think, and not just say it for ourselves, but you know, trickle it down to everybody.
Right.
About how it really worked out and is working out.
That's great to hear.
And there's no manual. Like, nobody gave us a manual to say, this is what you do when you reopen.
And every time you think you figure it out, it changes.
Right. And we have decided right now not to reopen any of our outdoor tables. We're still working on what that looks like, because we have 5 locations and each one is so different. We can't say, you do this one. We have to really, you know, look at what each one is doing. We have one location, Kenilworth in Towson, that has a drive-through. So they're actually doing more business right now.
I was going to say, that could be the way of the future.
We're wondering, do we even need to open the outdoor tables? You know, there's a long line there. So it's, and really, and I think that Ellen might have said this, and, you know, somebody else, is that just how the customers are really happy that we're there. A lot of, you know, gratefulness to them.
Appreciation, right.
Thank you for being open. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing, you know, a special birthday cake, you know, for my husband's birthday, even though we were in quarantine, those kinds of things.
I'd like to hear that. So Juste, I'm going to ask you the same question, which is a lasting change that might stick around, or that's something that the positive that came out of this period for your restaurant.
Well, you know, for us, we're a very unique restaurant, so we only have 30 seats, right? If you've ever been to Maple, it's table next to the table. So the biggest challenge for us is to squeeze in as many people in there as possible, right? Which now it's completely counterproductive. But what we were able to do for us is we removed that limitation. With the to-go, there's no more dine-in limit, right? So we actually broke our record, our all-time record of people served on Mother's Day, which for me, it was incredible what we could do just because we didn't seat people. We were able just to take an order and give it to people that are coming in. So that was amazing, which also is very concerning moving forwards, because we are so small. I don't think we're gonna open anytime soon inside, even when allowed, because we would be able to have 2, maybe 3 tables. And
wow.
It doesn't make sense. So I had this idea of selling the restaurant space. Let's say you bring a party of 10 people. Let's say you know that they've been very responsible and social distancing and
social bubble party.
Exactly. That was one of the ideas what we could do moving forward. But yeah, also, like I mentioned before, my personal hours now are much better, which is very unusual, I know. And I've been thinking a lot about restaurant industry in general, how unsustainable sometimes it can be, how high rent costs, you know, drive the business down. Because for me personally, I love this industry. At the same time, I really hate it. But it's my own fault. It's my own fault, and I know that. So this whole situation made me really think, what should I do to change the industry for myself? Which would mean, you know, look for health insurance, look for ability to provide that to yourself as employee and your employees, you know, look for those reasons why we are in this industry and actually make it happen moving forward. And I think that was a good shakeup in that sense. And I think we're going to figure it out, because we, you know, restaurants, you as a restaurant owner, you as a restaurant employee, you've been beat up for so long, right? We you know, we take a lot. So this can be the good step. This could be the actual kick to actually make it happen, to change the industry.
A little revolution.
Exactly.
That's right.
And I'm excited about that. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think it's going to be good.
That's good. That's so reassuring to hear. Jessica, I'm going to ask you the same question, either that question or how can we best support you during this time? Because then we're going to go to Q&A after we hear from Ellen and Chris on this question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think for us, and for me personally, I mean, continuing to support restaurants however you can. I mean, many people are not comfortable to dine out right now, and that's totally understandable. And so continuing to support takeout and pickup options from all restaurants is a great way to support. I mean, continuing to lobby for the changes that are needed to, you know, the PPP, you know, continue to being active in with your local and national government about the issues that affect restaurants and that have been, you know, that have impacted us significantly during this crisis. I mean, for me, like the silver lining is that I think we're now able to really hyper focus on what it is that, what is the nature of the experience that we can provide. And maybe our eyes have been open to different ways that we can provide it that we may not have ever pursued previously. We would have never, I don't think we would have ever considered doing takeout or delivery from, say, Fiola Mare. And you know, that has been a great experience for us in designing a menu that can travel well, can be reheated, but still capture some of the magic of the dining experience. And so that's been a great success.
That's good to hear. Ellen, I'm going to go to you also with the same sort of what you've learned that might stick around after this.
I've learned that after many years of sort of being an industry that maybe wasn't taken as seriously 10, 15, 20 years ago, that we have the dubious honor, and I take it, the honor and the responsibility very, very seriously, that we were allowed to be essential employees, where we were allowed to open and pay as one. All eyes are on us. It's brought a lot of, this is the silver lining part, but shine a lot of light on immigration issues and just who runs these restaurants.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
Jobs that, yeah. And what I hope customers take away from this experience too is to see, you know, hospitality has outnumbered the federal government now in how many people we employ. And I think that this silver lining has really shined a spotlight on our food supply and antitrust issues with meat processing plants, for example. I worked for a big distributing company, so I know all about it, but you know, there's 3 meat packing companies in this country and 2 of them are owned by foreign entities. So I'm grateful for the spotlight that has been shined on our supply system, not just for PPP equipment, but food, and the people who bring the food into the backs of our kitchens, and how now more than ever it's important to support local small family businesses, and everything we buy, we try to do that. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity to do this right, ladies, all of us on this panel, to open up safely, properly, following the law, whatever that may be today.
Yes.
And proving that we in the hospitality industry, we got this, and we deserve the spotlight that is finally being shined on us. You know, back when I met my husband, you know, a kitchen dinner inside the kitchen at Galileo was a huge thing, like to come into the kitchen where they still had the double swinging door. And I lived through all that open kitchen stuff and all that. And that was sort of the beginning of bringing us out into the daylight. Hello. So I'm silver lining is what it's done for us as a whole. And I have learned how much awesome responsibility is about to be on our shoulders to not screw this up.
Yes.
Or keep it flat, make it go down.
Yes.
Let it not be on our, you know, our shoulders that we messed this up.
It's a lot of responsibility. It's always being in the restaurant industry has always been a lot of responsibility, and this is a whole new level. Chris, I'm going to ask the same question to you, and then we have some really interesting questions that people wanted us to get to. But I want to hear from you about what lasting changes. And we were talking a little bit about that today, potentially with the dinner club.
Right. No, although I think we should have ended with Ellen's response, because I thought it was perfect.
Okay.
But,
done.
With regards to me, I learned that I have to pull in even more to cut my labor and food costs. So we're cutting it to bare bones. We're realizing that we can do a lot of things a lot cheaper than we were. I'm going to cut the size of my menu, which is going to reduce. Also because to Ellen's point, there are a lot of ingredients we can't get anymore.
Yes, we didn't even talk about supply chain issues.
I was trying to order fresh fish the other day, and there was a very limited selection, and I was told that a lot of the fisheries have gone out of business. So there are definitely some changes we have to make to our menu. what's interesting about my interaction now so directly with customers is that I can listen to, I can hear what they're saying. I can hear what they want. I think the era of the chef or the restaurant dictating to people what they want or what they should be eating is passing. I'm able now to interact with people and hear what they enjoy or what they really want. So I'm really going to be listening to what my customers have to say about what they want.
Mm-hmm.
What I've learned certainly is what staff has risen to the occasion. What staff has been there for us. What staff has rolled up their sleeves and no more of that. No, that's not my job. That doesn't happen anymore. People are so thankful to have a job. They are willing to do anything. Certainly, though, I think the lasting change that we will continue doing are these to-go curated menus. I think it's going to be a long time before we return to normal. It kind of depends maybe where your restaurant is, but my restaurant is in the part of the city where there's not much residential. We're surrounded by professional offices, many of which are not coming back, I'm told, till January. So there goes my lunch business.
Not to mention events, private events.
Oh my goodness, forget Christmas parties or when conferences are in town and we do big corporate dinners. That's gone, and it's going to be gone for a very long time.
Yes.
So I think we need at least the restaurants in the city have to be thinking about other options. So this idea of curating menus that people can have good food, because also we're surprised at how little people don't know how to cook.
Yes. Or they don't want to. Yeah.
Or they don't want to, but basically I think it's because they don't know how. And then of course you have to go shopping and I think there's going to be a huge market for these type of to-go meals where people can just pick it up or have it delivered and have an experience at home that's not just pizza and a bowl of Cheerios.
Yeah.
I think that this concept of doing to-go meals, it has legs.
Yeah.
And it's here to stay.
That's well, it's going to be a big change that comes. So, I wanted to address, a lot of people are asking great questions, and Drew or Stacy, I hope somebody will save these questions because it would be really interesting to answer some of them in a newsletter or something afterwards. But a lot of people are asking about servers with face masks or taking people's temperature or taking customers' temperature. Do any of you want to answer? I won't ask it to anyone in particular. Do any of you want to answer the question about how you're going to, let's see what a specific question is.
I can try and answer that.
Okay.
I think a lot of it is the perception of safety. And I think a customer wants to see a staff person in a mask. A customer is going to be very observant as to how are the busboys cleaning tables? What are they touching?
Look out, Yelp, right?
Oh my God! Don't get me.
don't even talk about Yelp.
Yeah, exactly.
For those of you who don't know, Yelp is the bane of almost every restaurant owner's and workers' existence.
But there's a perception. There also, no matter. I walked out. My general manager he bleached everything. I walked out into my outdoor space the other day, and there was such a smell of cleanliness. I have no doubt that our restaurant is clean and safe, but we also have to make it apparent. People need to see that your staff has gloves, your staff has masks, things are being wiped down. We're not, I spent Saturday busily retyping the menu and putting them inside a plastic container that can be wiped down,
Right.
or wine lists that can be disposed of. You drop it to one
Right.
table and then you throw it away. So I think these kinds of things are very important to customers. But then, of course, there's the question about, usually when we go to the table, what happens? The waiter or the owner or the maitre d' smiles,
Yeah.
and makes eye contact, and there's this exchange that with masks now is no longer possible. So how do you promote a feeling of goodwill and welcomeness when people can't see your mouth?
Yeah.
But I think in general,
Has anybody found a solution to that yet, or how do you maintain that relationship? Jessica,
well,
smiling.
eye contact is really important. The eye contact, I think, is really important, and maintaining. I mean, we did a training, couple days of mock service before we opened our patio on Friday, and sitting as a diner at the table, that's the first thing, that's how you have to engage now. I mean, and that essentially hasn't changed, but now that's all you have. You only have the eyes. And so that becomes really important to maintain eye contact and be communicative and expressive with the eyes. I think for the servers is very important.
Although if I know the Trabocchi group, I'm guessing you guys are going to come up with the most stylish masks in the city pretty soon.
We're working on it.
I always love the uniforms at your restaurants.
Thank you. Yeah.
So another question, just for any of you who want to answer, a lot of people are asking about the economics of this. What does your sales look like compared to what they looked like? I know for the restaurant group that I work for, they were down at the beginning of the pandemic 90%. Now they're down about 40% until this weekend happened, and then they were probably down 90% again. So what about the economics? How much did the PPP loan help? Does anyone feel comfortable sharing anything particular about how to survive financially?
Yeah, we're lucky at Atwater's in that not only do we have the 5 locations, but we also do about 10 farmers markets. In non-COVID time, we'd be doing about 15. Mm-hmm. So, and then we have, of course, our pantry and online sales and catering and all those things. So the restaurant used to be that, the stores, made most of the money. I would say their sales are down about, depending on which location, anywhere from 60 to 80%. Our farmers markets are through the roof crazy. I think that's one of the other silver linings is that people are finding farmers markets someplace safe to go to and buy.
I never wake up early enough to get my straw-on bread from you.
Oh, right. We weren't prepared for it for the first 2 weeks. We were like, what? So, the farmers markets, and we do a pre-order system. So you can go online, do your order, and pick it up at the market. So our farmers market sales are, 200% more than what they usually are.
But overall for the company, would you say, can you share a number, or how much the PPP loan may or may not have helped?
The PPP loan definitely helped for sure. Because there's so many different figures everywhere, it's sort of hard to say, but I would say still all in all, we're down. I don't think it's 50%, but it might be close. Mm-hmm. But there's so many different numbers that are thrown in there right now. It's sort of hard to say.
Juste and Ellen, do either of you want to respond on that, the financial question?
Well, I can talk about PPP a little bit. We actually applied, and at the end, we didn't take it because it just didn't make sense financially, because that means that we would need to pay people that we don't need. Not in the sense that we don't want them in the business, but for me, that creates that ethics problem, because those people do not have a job at the restaurant, but we would need to pay them just because we need to use the money, which I guess is part of the idea of the PPP. But I think the problem is that PPP was not created with restaurants and not.
Yeah, not at all. That's the problem with it.
Exactly. So for us, it would not work. Currently, we have 4 employees, including the owners. So can you imagine going back to staffing that was last year to now? And
how many did you have then?
Well, we used to have anywhere from 7 to 15, depending on the season and how busy you are.
Mm-hmm.
So that creates a lot of problems for us. How keep employees safe, even if we invited other people to come back. Now we have this trust bubble with our employees, right? We trust them. We know they're social distancing. We have this agreement that I rely on you, you rely on me, so we don't get sick. And allowing other people to come in that we don't know if they've been socially distancing is risky. And I mean, there's a lot of facets of taking that loan that you need to think through and if it's worth it.
Yeah.
And there are other financing options. Let's say the employee retention credit. So for us, that's a better option.
By the way, you guys are really inspiring people here tonight because I'm getting such a great chat and so many wonderful questions. Ellen, did you want to respond to that, or should I pull up another question?
I'll go for another question. Probably too much on that topic.
I don't know. A lot of people, okay, I don't know if this is something you feel comfortable answering. A lot of people are wondering about restrooms and they are feeling unsafe about, sorry, Ellen, about going to the bathroom. And we're hoping that they won't do that in your brand new planters. Want to get another question?
No, I don't. A restroom is a very personal, intimate space. And it's definitely, you know, I mean, think about it. It's a public, but so I think I'm always a big bathroom person. It's so old school, but I've always said a bathroom is a direct indication of the kitchen. Listen, at the end of the day, this is a personal choice. If you're freaking out that much, order takeout. Like really, you know, I would love to tell you every inch of our toilet seats are scoured down. Like you got to get to a point where we have done an amazing job at being educated about this pandemic. There are, I don't know how much media content out there is that we can all sift to what the truth is and what, you know, risk group you're in and what, you know, things you take. I think the people going out right now are more adventurous diners than your typical dining crowd right now. I mean, people who come back to us for the 24 hours we were open were like, yeehaw, in the door, sitting down. They were taking their masks off. We were asking them to put them on. They were acting like, you know, college students at a fraternity party, honestly. Like,
did that scare
not
you?
like in a rowdy way, but they were having a good
time.
So those are the people that are also there's phase 1 of restaurant openings, but there's also phase 1, 2, and 3 of customers.
Yes.
Both sides. Nobody's putting a leash on them and telling them to come out. Like, that's the beauty of what we're all talking about here is we're still all going to offer our delivery because whether we can operate at full capacity or not, we know there's people who are not comfortable coming out because everybody's health situation is completely unique to them. Therefore, you need to make your own decision. You know who you live with. You know, if you're going to go see your mother or father who live, you know, in a retirement community, whatever. The people coming out right now are not like quivering in a corner looking for germs and a reason to get on Yelp and bitch about you. Like, that's just not the personality of people coming out in phase 1. You know, the customer profile in phase 1, 2, and 3 is the same as restaurant profile in 1, 2, and 3. By phase 3, we're going to get like a lot more of the, you know, cautious or people with specific situations that they have to. My brother has a very terrible emphysema lung disease. He will not go out. He will not, you know, he has to, he's sick. So, you know, but then there's other people like my 21-year-old son who's like, you know, went right back to school.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to remember that you're not matching up. You're not talking apples to, you know, apples. If you're thinking that the people that are coming out right now, braving, you know, phase 1, they're gung-ho to come out, at least from my experience. I have no idea what anybody else is like, but we've had some fervent support when we were open then.
You know, I agree with Ellen in that there's also an element of personal responsibility. If I really don't understand what the difference is in going to a bathroom where you're touching surfaces, how is that different than going to any other public place, going to the supermarket, going to Target, touching different surfaces? If you wash your hands with hot water and soap, then there's no issue. Or you do as I do. When I have to go to the supermarket, I wear gloves. I wear disposable gloves. So I think we have to think about a personal responsibility as well.
Absolutely. I have so many more questions that I would want to ask you, and there are so many more questions in the panel, but is there anything that anybody wants to add before we pass it over to Stacey Adams, who is our president, to close things out tonight?
In the department of things I should know more about Bread Starter. Because as a company that makes bread, I mean, we just got tons and tons of phone calls about buying starter. And we all had to become experts at baking bread and knowing about starters and knowing about yeast and knowing about flour. We get panic phone calls. So it was a learning experience. So that was the department of things I need to know more about.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're a sourdough family over here.
Yeah.
So
Aviva, I was just
yes.
going to say one thing. I mean, on the going back to your question or the topic of sort of silver linings and things that we've learned, is just that for me, I think in the situation that we find ourselves in now, I think what's become really apparent is that we're all in this together. And I think as restaurateurs, as providers of hospitality and service, I think all of the ways that we care for each other are really brought into the forefront, both our teams and what we've had to do to ensure their safety and well-being, the ones that are at home still furloughed, and the ones that are working for us again in the restaurants, as well as our guests. So it's kind of made the whole experience a lot more, I think, intimate and personal. And we have a great responsibility to care for each other in a way that I think is maybe it sounds corny, but it's just a lot more intimate these days, even as we socially distance.
Yes, one big trust bubble.
Yeah,
I hope. And I'm going to pass it over to Stacey Adams. And I just want to personally say thank you to all of our panelists. It's been so great getting to know you better and hearing your stories. And I'm so impressed by each of you. And for our audience, thank you for being here. And I hope that you will continue to support your favorite restaurants in whatever way that you are able for as long as necessary, even beyond this. And hi, Stacey.
Thank you very much. That was absolutely wonderful. I watched this whole thing half teary-eyed.
Oh.
You all have touched me so much by your stories. And, I've seen so many of us take just the risks that we have to take to make it through this in ways that I've never seen before. And it's scary. And, change can be very terrifying, but it's also our superpower. And I'm seeing that in every single one of you. And I am so honored to be part of this group of women who are fighters, and so this has been such a fascinating panel. This is changing Les Dames Escoffier, our chapter. This is one of, the first of many of these that we're going to do. We would have done this in person, but we can't. And I think we pulled it off very, very well. So I want to thank every one of you who have joined us tonight. I know there's a lot of you out there who are restaurateurs or business owners who are struggling, and I hope that there was some information here tonight that helped you. And we're here for you if you want to ask questions. Hopefully we have everybody's email address or contact information that we can get back to you on that. But thank you again from the bottom of my heart, from Les Dames Escoffier, Washington, D.C. chapter. I love you all. Thanks so much.